Special meeting of the Brattleboro Selectboard Thursday, April 2nd, 2020. Have we confirmed that the meeting has been officially warned, Peter?
It has. Thank you.
Thank you. So welcome to this strange and difficult time we are all in. And this strange, and we'll get used to this method of meeting, I think, in the next few weeks. And I hope everybody is well, and I hope everyone's haircuts are holding out for the time being. So I'd like to start us off with new business, and our one main new business is going to be a discussion of COVID-19 and its effects specifically to Brattleboro, and steps we've been taking and potential steps we could take. So I'm going to turn things over to our town manager, Peter Elwell, and to go ahead and ask you to give us a little bit of an update concerning town operations.
Sure. Thank you, Tim. I'm going to focus mainly on the period since March 24th, because that is when the governor issued the stay home, stay safe order. And that the operation of town government between the last sort of live update like this, as opposed to the daily updates that are being posted on the website, the operations between March 17th, when that last live update happened at a select board meeting that evening, until a week later on March 24th, the operations were not fully normal for sure, but continued in much the same manner as we had been in our adjusted operations through the middle of March. On March 24th, of course, things changed very significantly, both for town government and everyone else, in terms of the necessity to stay at home as much as possible, and for many people to be doing that virtually full time. And so town government also had to adjust operations significantly. We went from not just having the facilities closed, but actually to not performing our usual work in those facilities. And so a quick summary of where we stand, where we powered down to over the next couple of days after March 24th has been pretty stable since then, with slight adjustments. The adjustments have been almost entirely in field work, as we have come to better understand what can be done safely and what needs to be done in order to protect the public. And so I'll speak to that in a minute, but I'd like to just quickly summarize sort of how the different services that we provide and different administrative support services are in fact functional now, the degrees to which each one is functional. So above all else, emergency services are being provided 24/7 as ever, with some modified procedures. So there are some ways in which fire and rescue crews arriving at the scene of a medical call are addressing, there's procedures they're following that are specific to COVID-19 precautions, but they are still responding to any call for assistance that comes in. Likewise, the police department is receiving all calls in the normal manner through the dispatch center. There is an adjustment in how the police department is responding to those calls. If there is anything life-threatening in the nature of the incident that has brought the call, then the police are responding as normal. If it is not a life-threatening situation or a harm-threatening situation, not a situation where someone's safety is of immediate concern, then the police department is following up on that through communications other than dispatching a police officer directly to that scene. And those decisions are being made on a case-by-case basis by the officers who are in charge of each shift as they receive those calls that are of a less emergency nature. And if one thing I should say about that, and it applies to everything that I'm summarizing, and as we go through discussion this evening, if there's ever a time where the amount of detail that I'm able to share is less than what you're seeking, all of the department heads are in this meeting and can be called upon to provide additional detail. So for instance, if you wanted to hear from Chief Fitzgerald about how those determinations are being made, about how to follow up on a call that doesn't need an urgent emergency response, then he'd be able to address that.
Thank you, Peter.
The one other type of sort of essential 24/7 service, so we often think of it in terms of the public safety operations. We often take for granted the public utilities operations of water and sewer, but they are similar in nature in that the community depends on them literally just for basic functioning, and so we have to take particular precautions to keep the employees who are operating those facilities safe, and to make sure that the facilities stay continuously operational in a safe manner. We're doing that, and so while there are special procedures in place both for the water and the sewer operation, for those of us when we're opening our taps or flushing our toilets, you should see no change at all from normal life. To administrative operations and non-emergency operations. On the administrative side and the ways that the public communicates with town government, while it is awkward and a little disconcerting to not be able to interact directly and face-to-face in town facilities and out in the community, we are still available, fully available in the administrative contacts that people often have with us. Email is fully functional, and we're spending a lot of time on it, communicating with folks. I would urge people to use our email as a way of staying in touch. And also all the normal telephone numbers at which people receive or reach out to us, usually in all the different administrative functions of town government, are working. And they're working in the normal manner. We forwarded all of the direct dial lines so that the person who you would normally reach on that direct dial line, you can still reach directly by calling it. Doesn't mean you won't ever get a voicemail, just like in normal business, you might sometimes get a voicemail, but the person that you're trying to reach is the person you will either reach directly or reach through your voicemail so that they can get promptly back to you. The direct dial numbers, we intended to do the same thing with, the numbers that are the main number for each office, and we learned that our telephone system just won't accommodate that. So instead, those numbers are receiving messages, and employees are checking them regularly throughout the day to pick up any messages that are left on the main office numbers. Moving to field operation, and I would say one other thing about the administrative operations. So in terms of the ability for folks to stay busy and productive and doing the work of town government, there is a significant degree to which employees are doing, completing the normal tasks that are part of daily operations, even from our many remote locations. So working from home, a lot of the administrative work of town government can continue really as it would if we were in our offices, just our communication methods are different. To the degree that some departments are less able to continue conducting all of the normal business they would conduct, we have repurposed some employees, and we have other employees who are working on projects that are specific to their department, that are part of sort of a longer term perspective, things that maybe there had not been time to get to, or things that otherwise would be beneficial to town operations when we gear back up to full and normal service. And so there is a significant degree to which town government work is just continuing, but in this unusual way. There are some employees who are less than working at less than full capacity, and there are very few employees, but there are a few in specific town functions that are no longer operating, who are actually at home and not working. But out of our 140 or so members of the team, there are fewer than 10 in the status of at home and not working. The field operations, I'll just remind everyone something that's obvious and doesn't any longer seem very important because life has changed so much, but back on the 17th when you met, we announced that parking enforcement had been discontinued indefinitely. That was an important early action that we could take and did take. It continues and will continue. Parking enforcement will continue to be suspended until we resume any kind of normal operations. And then the field activities of Public Works and the Parks Maintenance team are something that's an important factor here. In our initial powering down, when we got the governor's order, in that first day or two at the end of last week, we more fully brought those crews off the street as well. And we're initially responding in an on-call manner. We quickly realized that it was going to be important for public safety out in the community, and that it was going to be important for public safety that we continue some level of service delivery from the field crews of Public Works and Parks Maintenance, and that we could perform that work in a manner that was safe both for the employees and for society. And so each unit has made adjustments as we went into the weekend and then during the course of this week in order to be able to continue to keep the transportation system functioning safely, in order to make sure that green spaces in the parks are available for public use, and otherwise just performing work where the vast majority of the work being done by those units is being done by individual employees with a piece of equipment and a single person, so there's not social interaction going on, but the work is being performed. And then there are rare occasions when more than one employee is teaming up on something when it's necessary for them to do that for their own safety and in order to perform a task that maintains public safety. So our adjustment of that has meant that we still have employees that are on call. We're not bringing in whole shifts of people in the normal manner, but all of the employees are staying busy, and the work is getting done that needs to get done for maintaining the safety of the community. And the reserve employees on any given day are available on call at any time to come out for an emergency. And we know that we could have a water main break, we could have some other kind of significant issue arise where we actually have to bring sort of a normal crew of people out that might involve 4 people or 6 people working together in order to solve something, and we will do that as needed as emergencies may arise. The parks side, where they're working individually in order to keep the green spaces safe, I want to stress that we can't keep the equipment safe. So the basketball courts should not be used. The playground equipment should not be used. Even park benches should not be used. But we want to encourage the public to come out and use the green spaces in this time when life is so stressful and we are for so much of our days confined indoors. It's important for people to get exercise and get some fresh air, and the town can help in that by having the green spaces maintained in a safe manner. So whether that's a park space where you can go to the park but not use the equipment, whether it's the Brattleboro Common where folks can come and enjoy the open space, we want people to come out and use those facilities, and we want to assure you that as long as you don't use the equipment while you're there, we are keeping those spaces safe for public use.
Peter?
Yes.
Could I just ask a question related to what you just spoke about?
Please.
I'm just curious because I haven't been able to get out much. I'm curious if the equipment is marked and how you've done so, yes. And maybe Carol can chime in or however you'd like to handle that.
Sure, thank you. So yes, at the playgrounds especially, and Carol can jump in if there's a broader, more complete answer she'd like to provide, but at the playgrounds, we were quick to put out signs that said, please don't use the equipment. We're not able to keep it sanitized. We were especially concerned about that because of the likelihood that, with schools closed and kids needing to work off some energy, that parents would want to come and use the playground equipment. And there's just no way for us to ensure that it stays clean enough for that to be safe. In fact, it's almost certain that it wouldn't stay clean enough for it to be safe. So we've simply said, stay off of it.
Thank you.
So forgive me for this. I want to just mention one thing about how we are learning from using GoToMeeting. I'm realizing that I have this odd sort of dim spotlight effect going on. I pulled a blind in where I am in my house in order to not have glare, and I've turned out instead to be sort of hiding in the shadows. So I'll address that for next time.
It's dramatic. Yeah, it's got a little bit of a underworld boss, crime boss thing going on.
Yeah, something I never really imagined I would ever project, but thank you. Anyway, I'll address that.
I think we're all figuring.
Couple of last things that I'd like to share, and then staff is happy to shed any additional detailed light you might want us to, and certainly to participate in discussions about how things are going and what more can be done. But I do want to stress that the two enrichment departments, the Brooks Memorial Library and the Recreation Department, both are staying, investing a lot of creative energy in trying to stay in service to the community during this time when the way they usually are is impossible. And so even though we've got all the recreation programming canceled, there are ways in which the Recreation Department is working online and communicating with their program participants, looking ahead to the time when we can gear back up, but even to keep people entertained and engaged during this time as well. The most recent example of that just announced today is a virtual Easter egg hunt that folks can go online and get more information about at the Recreation Department's website. That'll hopefully be fun for children and families. And the library, because it does a lot of online programming already as part of normal services, is actually able to provide quite a lot of service and quite a lot of access to resources, even though we're not able to have people come to the library to access physical resources in this time. So I'd urge people to use both websites and stay in touch with the library staff and the recreation staff about the services that they are providing. A reminder about a couple of things that are normal. Very little is normal these days, but if you're going to have an outside fire, you need to obtain a burn permit from the fire department. That's an important thing at this time of year. We have a lot of people cleaning up yards and burning off the collected leaves and stuff, and an open air fire requires a burn permit. So please be sure to contact the fire department to get one. And the annual leaf pickup, spring leaf pickup, is going to happen on Friday, April 17th and Friday, May 1st. The hardware stores and agricultural supply stores remain available, so you can buy the brown leaf bags in those locations. Fill them up, bring them out to the curb, and they'll be picked up on Friday the 17th, townwide, Friday the 17th of April, Friday the 1st of May. That again is an activity that we're really encouraging people. If you're someone with a yard to take care of, take advantage of that one tiny bit of normalcy and to get some exercise as well as to clean up your yard. And you'll receive the normal curbside pickup of those leaves that happens at this time of year. We have been asked by many people in the community about suspending pay-as-you-throw, the answer may feel a little bureaucratic to people. I'm sorry if it does, but it's we have asked the state of Vermont for permission to stop. Whether it would be possible for the board to make a decision to suspend pay-as-you-throw temporarily, and the answer we got from the state is no. And the reason, the explanation, I think people need to understand about that, because it seems kind of crazy. Like, why can't we just do that? It's a local program. Why wouldn't we decide it locally? Is because the state law related to solid waste collection and disposal requires what they call variable rate pricing, so that the more someone throws away, the more they pay for the collection and disposal of that garbage. It's intended in normal times and has been very successful in normal times in diverting what would have been garbage in years past into the recycling waste stream and the compost waste stream. Better, more sustainable, just a proper way to run that part of public service in normal times. The because the state law requires variable rate pricing, and because the sale of the purple and yellow bags is the way that Brattleboro complies with that state requirement, we need the state's permission if we're going to suspend pay-as-you-throw and therefore suspend variable rate pricing. Randy?
Let me get unmuted. I do want to just respond to our community members that asked about this, and just from the heart say that I am disappointed in this decision from the state. I feel like this is a time where we need to be able to be responsive and to be pulling as much burden off of humans that are in our community as possible. And I feel like this is a burden that we could have been able to pull back on. And my heart is with myself and our entire community in the fact that we aren't able to do this. I'm disappointed in the decision.
Thanks, Brandy.
And the last thing I wanted to mention is just one thing that also has been news out in the community, but just in case anybody had not heard who might be affected by this, and to make sure that it's the reminders out there, the select board on March 17th took an action that indefinitely deferred the obligation for small businesses who have loans from our small business assistance program to pay those loans back. So there's usually monthly payments required. Those are suspended until further notice, until we get far enough along that we not only are getting out on the other side of COVID, but also able to assess what other supports the business community needs in recovering from the economic impacts of COVID-19. And there'll be a time in the future when the board will make a determination it's appropriate to resume the requirement of those monthly payments. But in the meantime, each month that goes by when those businesses are not making a payment on those loans will simply be added to the far side of the end of the loan period for repayment, subject to any future action that the board may take otherwise regarding those loans. But as of right now, the most important news is that it was an action you took quickly, recognizing that businesses are being immediately and significantly impacted by this, to say that those who had relied on this assistance from the town as far as either starting or expanding their businesses here in Brattleboro would be free of the obligation to pay those loans back for the foreseeable future.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, I know it can be a pretty significant thing. A couple of loan recipients have thanked me for that. And if only we could all have our mortgage companies do that for us as well. I know it's something I'm working on.
That's my report. I'm happy to assist in your discussion, or any of the department heads can chime in if you need more details.
Okay, thank you. I did want to just say two things. This is a special meeting, so it doesn't always follow the exact protocol of regular meetings. But I did want to open it up to our 5 board members with just a platform right now, in case you wanted to address anything, have additional questions, or just make a comment about the state of the times, just because it didn't appear on the agenda. And then also wanted to point out that I did have a conversation with our ESL interpreter and pretty much promised that it would only go to about an hour, because Elizabeth is here on her own right now. But I think a lot of the discussions that we're going to have will be continuing to roll over to next Tuesday, which is not far away. So feel free to, I'll try to keep us tidy with the time if the questions get fast and furious. But having said that, any other board members want to say a couple words or have a question? Oh, Brandy.
I'm still figuring out the unmute. So I wanted to piggyback on we had talked about some of the things that the library was able to do for the community, and I wanted to give some accolades to the Brattleboro Police Department for this fun thing that they're doing for the kids, where I think Officer Stanley's been out doing some scavenger hunts and seeking things. And I know that I'm trying to find ways to bring normalcy into my kid's life, and having that connection there has been really good. And I have a lot of more serious things to say about things that I want to see done during this time. But at this very second, I actually just want to give a shout out to the police department for such a thoughtful and creative way to engage our kiddos who do not, as much as we don't know what's going on, they've just been dragged and plunked into the middle of this. And I'm really appreciative to the police department for that.
Thank you, Brandy. Anyone else? I think I had a very quick follow-up question, if you don't mind, Peter, because it occurred to me with the burn permits, maybe Mike could chime in. I'm curious if it doesn't apply to those fairly small contained units that people have on legs, you know? Can you just clarify that? Because, you know, if people want to go out back and have a small burn, does it apply to small, you know, under 3 foot units?
Mike is on the screen, and he's the fellow who's going to need to answer this one.
This is awesome. Yes.
How's that?
Chief Bukowski. Did you hear my question?
Hi, everybody. So Tim, what we do ask is, even if it's a contained fire in those fire pits, that they at least call the station and let us know, because a lot of times we'll get a report for a column of smoke, and those burn permits get plotted on a map, so we can, even though we'll check them, at least we got a good idea where they are. So we do ask people to get a burn permit whenever they want to burn something.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And so it sounds like that's it for the update and board members' comments. So our only other...
Ken, excuse me for interrupting. Liz, trying to get your attention.
Sorry.
Patrick, maybe we can unmute the select board members. So
I just had a question about Public Works. Will this spring street cleaning occur?
Yes, the street sweeping.
Yes.
Oh, it's occurring very loudly.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, I haven't
Thanks
seen it,
for
but I
asking.
have seen a lot of debris on the streets.
Right, and I really appreciate you asking that. I meant to mention that in my summary. That's exactly the kind of activity that is ideal for this unusual moment in time, because a single operator can, you know, come into work in their own vehicle, get into the sweeper, do the work that is, you know, beneficial to safety and cleanliness in the community, go back, sanitize the sweeper, get in their car and go home. And so it's not creating any additional risk for the person or for the community. And it's an important task at this time of year. And I see Steve has come on. Do you have something you want to add to that?
Yeah, Peter, I think you covered it quite well. We've also been doing the parking lots downtown. You know, we've seen some glass, broken glass, there's dog debris. So we're trying to keep the streets clean. Those are done on weekends. And then throughout the week, the sweeper has been actively out they'll end up doing all the streets in town.
Thanks, Steve. I just realized the great thing about this is that, you know, often at meetings when we're at the municipal center, I feel guilty if people stay past their long work days to be with us at the meeting, people like Steve or Chief Bukowski or whoever, or police chiefs. And now I don't have to feel guilty that we're bringing them away from their home to not get a question asked. And now I filled time and Daniel has a question.
Yeah, so that is a good segue, because I think, you know, one of the challenges with the whole working from home thing is that the work-life balance has become pretty imbalanced for a lot of folks. I'm fairly privileged in that, I don't know, I mean, I don't have too much to worry about right now other than the obvious big things that everybody has to worry about. I don't have kids to take care of. I don't have a dog to take care of. And I guess I'm thinking about those employees that are working from home. And we sort of talked a little bit earlier about like productivity and, you know, and how we're kind of providing services, in some ways business as usual. Like, I don't know, this is kind of a tricky question to ask, I guess, because I want our taxpayers to get value for their money, but I also want our staff to be taken care of and like their mental health to be considered and their family situations to be considered as we're thinking about like productivity at this time. So
Thank you.
I just wanted to kind of put that out there.
May I speak to that? I really appreciate that. Thank you. And it is something that we're paying some particular attention to just in our relationships that we maintain with one another as a team of people serving the community. The public service that we provide, the fact that we're town employees in a small town, doing what we do is important to us. So maintaining as much of that is, I think, both not just a sense of obligation that we feel, but it's also a there is reward in that. There's comfort in that during this time when so much else is upside down. At the same time, yes, certainly the stresses of working from home, especially if you have children who are home from school, and so you're dealing with the intensity of not being able to have any kind of normal routine that gets you out and into different settings like usual is a real issue. And so as a team working together in town government, we've tried to pay particular attention to that and make sure that families and individuals are well supported. I think it's also important that the legislation that has come out of both the state and the federal government is mindful of those things. So there's some aspects to it that, frankly, without getting political, I was a little surprised at how far some of it went. I was pleasantly surprised at how far some of it goes to protect family interests at this time when that boundary between work and home is completely blurred. And we're also mindful, and this is not something that we in town government are able to address very fully, but it is a situation that is being experienced by some of our employees at the lower wage levels, and we're very mindful of that and trying to attend to it as best we can. That you mentioned privilege, Daniel, and there's some of us who are experiencing certainly a terrific degree of stress and change from this, but in relatively more comfortable circumstances, and others who are more vulnerable, both in normal day-to-day life and now especially during COVID. And we have members of our town employee team who are among those too. And so we're trying to make sure that we're attentive to that as we make decisions and take actions, both for the services that we provide and for the way in which we communicate as a team.
Thanks to both of you.
I just had a question that, Peter, maybe you would like to explain all the various things on the new website that people can understand the services that are done by ourselves and beyond us.
Great, thank you again, Liz. People are gonna think we scripted it. Throw Peter another softball. Yes, thank you for that. The website, on the homepage of the website, first of all, as it related directly to this meeting, which is now something that those of us who have joined us are well aware of, but in case the broader community needs to know, we did today, and we will every day when there is a select board meeting, post right at the top of the homepage the one-click link that'll get you into this meeting. So for people who do have computer access and are able to join the meeting online, that'll be as easy as going to the town's website anytime at 6 o'clock or after, in the 15 minutes prior to a 6:15 select board meeting. Click on that one click and you enter the meeting. The day-to-day, what was just down below that today and what is there every day is a 6-box COVID-19 information center that we've created, where the upper left-hand box is the town updates. So every day the town is pushing out whatever is new that day. There are days, there have been just a few of them, but there are days when the update is no change today. Most days there's at least 1 or 2 or 3 things that need to be shared about how things are changing related to this whole situation and related to town government. So those daily updates are posted there, and the whole history of them is there for people to go down and look at something old if they want to. Because it has now been a while, and because we know it's going to be weeks longer, it also occurred to us that there needed to be a summary of sort of how things evolved that people could look at. And so right up at the top of that list now is a timeline. So the timeline is for if people want to sort of trace the history. If you want the latest of it, what's actually the current status of town government, you want to go into the latest daily update. And that not only has the 2 or 3 bits of new information, but the current status of all town operations. The second box down is resources for businesses. And that is provides links. One thing I should say before moving on into talking about the other 5 boxes is the only box that we are posting information to is the town updates box. We've made a very conscious decision that we're adhering to strictly that I think is really important in times that are so much driven by public health issues and so fluid in all different ways of different parts of our society. There's information that we learn about what other people are doing, but we're not presuming to speak for them, even when we think we've got something that is accurate and reliable, because things are changing so quickly that we might have good information in the morning, share it in the afternoon, and end up being wrong. And so what we're doing instead, when it relates to Brattleboro Memorial Hospital, when it relates to business supports, when it relates to social supports for individuals and families, is we're posting links. And then people can access from the town's website the resources that are available from those who are keeping their information current about what they are doing in their area of specialty related to the emergency. So you got the town information up in that upper left-hand corner. You've got business information, several different links, both to BDCC locally, providing supports to businesses in southeastern Vermont, as well as to other business helps beyond out at state government and so on. Down below that is an array of different links to help for resources that are available for individuals and families. And over on the right side, the 3 tiers are just in state, national, and global related to the health issues that are driving this whole situation. So the Vermont Department of Health link, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention link in the center box, and then in the lower right, the World Health Organization. So people can come to the town's website and get straight out into literally any scope or scale of health information about this through those links. And on the left-hand side, we're trying to provide the information that is helping people cope with the situation, the non-health aspect.
Thank you, Peter. And I think Ian wanted to chime in.
Yeah, quickly. Peter, can you speak to how individuals can participate in the select board meetings going forward if they don't have internet access at home?
Yes, thank you. So the information at the top of the website today and in a more detailed way on the warnings for every meeting will not only reference the way to link in with a computer, but also a telephone number you can call to participate by phone. So, and also BCTV, probably a lot of folks in town are seeing us right now on BCTV in the way that they normally do when the select board meets. Every select board meeting will be on BCTV, and we encourage people strongly who have computer access to please join the meeting online rather than by phone, because the way in which we're all going to communicate with one another is, as we'll see in a few moments when Tim invites public comment and questions, for folks who are going to come in and get on the screen and make a comment because they're connected online, that's going to be really easy for them and easier for us to manage in the sort of logistics of the meeting. It's much more cumbersome to deal with a phone call coming in, but we know that it's important that we allow that as another means of access to the meeting, because not everybody will be able to connect online. And so, frankly, there's going to have to be probably a little trial and error on that. I can call up the screen. I don't have the town's website in front of me, but in a minute, when somebody else is talking, I will call up the screen so we can announce to folks that telephone number in case there is anybody watching on BCTV who doesn't have a computer but would like to call in when it's time for public comment. We'll let folks know how they can do that. And as we experience it all together tonight, we're going to find out whether it's in the manner in which we think we can have that be orderly and helpful for people to participate. We're going to find out together whether that works or whether we need to adjust that part of the meeting, you know, how we hold the meeting.
Thank you very much, Peter.
And I can give that number now. Will that not change?
That number will not change. We give just one quick thing. So none of the link information or phone information is going to change. One of the things that we did in establishing a relationship with GoToMeeting is, you know, with the provider of the platform that we're on, is that we can have the same link work every time for a select board meeting. It is the select board meeting link. It'll be made active when there's going to be a select board meeting, and it'll be dormant when there's not. But people who are you know, saving it and clicking in other than through the town's website will be able to keep doing that just by having the link any one time. And likewise with the telephone number for calling in, it'll always be the same telephone number.
Okay, thank you. Let me just give that telephone number really quick. That's going to be a toll-free number, 866-899-4679. So it's 866-899-4679, and that comes with an access code. That's 804-762-765. And we'll be writing that and announcing it more and more. I do want to move us along, being conscious of time here a little bit, and remind people that the way we're doing it right now, we're trying to have people, if you want to make a comment or have a question, just use the chat function to let me know. I'm keeping an eye on it, and a couple of people have asked to ask a question already. So that's our form of raising hand. I'm not familiar if GoToMeeting has that function that some systems do. So that's how you raise your hand to ask a question right now. And I just also wanted to say, unless there's another board member that wanted to say something, just to make two notes, because things are moving so fast with this new world that we're dealing with. We normally would have some sort of recognition for David Scholes. He served here on this board for 7 years, and I think we want to recognize that. But of course, this COVID-19 situation went down, and we haven't made any official actions or recognitions for that. But I did want to speak that out loud because I think it's important to thank him for his service. And also a shout out right to Ian, who is here with us, and because this is his first official board meeting. So welcome, Ian. And,
thank you very much.
Yeah, great.
Thank you, David, and welcome, Ian.
With that, I think I'd like to move into public participation. I do have a short queue, and the first person that asked me to ask a question was Olga Peters. So I think I do want to also shout out to Patrick, who is really behind the curtain. He is operating all of the strings and the bells and the whistles. So Patrick is assisting me, I hope, in bringing up Olga so she can, there she is, so she can ask us a question. So go ahead and let's follow the same protocol of where you're from, and I don't know, you could give us street or if you're a resident.
Hi, I'm Olga Peters. I'm actually in Dummerston, but I am a writer for the Commons, so I am here reporting tonight. I don't know if this question goes to Peter or Steve Barrett. I know there's still a lot that's really uncertain right now, but when it comes to town projects, especially our construction projects, this is usually this time where we're starting to send out bids and we're planning and all those sorts of things. what's going to happen to those projects? Are they just getting pushed back? Are things moving forward as planned?
The answer is some of both. Steve's on, and I'd like him to speak. We've got one in particular we're going to be bringing forward for an award on April 21st because we know it is a public health matter in and of itself. So it's a good example of the kind of things we will be continuing forward with. But certainly there will also be delays of some projects, either because it's just not practical to organize that work under these circumstances, or in some cases because out-of-state contractors would be coming in to provide to do the work, and it would not be appropriate under the governor's order. But Steve?
Yeah, Peter summed that up quite well. It's things that would affect health and safety that we're going to focus on. And again, in the wastewater, we have some manholes that we're going to reline. We'll be bringing that to the board. We're uncertain of the hot mix contracts, and we're aware how rough the roads are. So that's definitely a safety concern. But these are things that we'll go over with the town manager and the board to decide which projects we'll move forward with.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks, Peter. And then my other question was Millicent Cooley has also asked, so about representative town meeting.
Oh. Do you think it's the same question? We could just.
I don't know. Well, I'm wondering about what's the plan for representative town meeting. Do we have? I know we kind of pushed back the date, but are any more plans to make a remote one? Any more plans for a new date? Like, just what's happening?
May I speak to that, Tim?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. So I think that the best thing, because of the time frame for tonight, I will say a quick snapshot comment on it, but because the goal was to be an hour or so tonight and we're 45 minutes in, and I think the RTM conversation itself is likely to take a while with some, good observations about could we do this or could we do that, or, the different statutory deadlines for getting certain things accomplished. That it would be better to save that for next Tuesday evening. It is an item of its own on the agenda for the select board meeting on Tuesday evening at 6:15. So if the folks who are asking about that don't mind waiting until then, we'll have a good, complete conversation. I can tell you now that it won't involve warning the meeting on April 7th to be held on May 9th, as we had hoped it would, because of the length of time that we expect the impacts of COVID-19 to be continuing to affect how we interact with one another. But we'll have a lot more to say about that on Tuesday.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Peter. I think that's a good summary. It's not looking good for May 9th, in my opinion. So we also have Millicent wanted to ask a question. And Millicent, I think we'll make you live and you can tell us if that was the exact question and we'll move on. If you're still with us, I haven't looked.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Yes, that was my question. The fact that we're meeting next week, I think is the, I'll just wait because it's as Peter said, there's a lot to that one. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Gosh, I don't want to jinx anything, but this is working remarkably well in my opinion. Does anybody else have it? Randy says. I know, I had to do it. Chris Grotke also had a question. And maybe Patrick, if you could magically make Chris live. Or maybe I can, if you'd like me to.
Hello,
Chris,
hello.
can you hear us?
Yep, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hey, I'm really enjoying this
Yes,
meeting. First
absolutely.
of all, because you can see everyone's face and their names are spelled out underneath them, which is great for typing it up. My question is a really general one. Are there any known cases of COVID-19 in Brattleboro?
There have been, I don't know whether there are at this moment. That's one of the pieces of tricky business in terms of the publicness of the role that we all play in the community, and our interaction with others who are responsible for certain major aspects of how both the public health aspects of this and other, the business aspects, the family supports, all of that goes on in ways that are beyond the reach of town government, but we become aware of certain things. We aren't speaking for other organizations about that. So I know that the hospital has information that it is intending to make available in the form of a dashboard of some sort. I don't know any more detail than that. That will be posted soon on the hospital's website that's going to have that kind of information more continuously available to the community. I don't know whether it will include broader sort of health department level data about cases that haven't been seen or treated at the hospital, but are people who are isolating in the community. The Vermont Health Department is really the best source of information related to where cases have occurred and how many have occurred. And that data is being published daily on a county by county basis, but is much less readily available on a town by town basis.
Gotcha. Thanks. I've been checking the hospital site and it's been woefully inadequate so far. So I'm glad to hear that they're planning that.
Yeah, and I'll just say that, we have 12,000 people here in town, but it's essentially a very small town with a lot of interconnected Venn diagrams and interconnected people. And there's obvious reticence to release information because of HIPAA rules and all that stuff, but a lot of people know of certain cases happening, and it's a little frustrating, I think, at the town level, because we can't be spreading rumors, but I think it's important for us to all remember that we do know that it is here in Brattleboro, Vermont, and that we have to just go forward and act safely and practice our distancing and just realize that it is here like it is almost everywhere in the world. We can't feel like we're in any kind of special bubble. If we did for a little while, I don't know. And we'll be receiving some more concrete numbers hopefully soon about that. So I guess I'll ask, is there anybody out there who would like to make a comment or ask a question? We have, unless the names are made up, I have a lot of names, people watching, which is terrific. We don't have any call-ins, which I'm kind of relieved at because we were all worried about how to handle that, but we certainly can handle it. We're just not sure how it's going to work logistically. At least the way I interpret it, Peter, I don't see anybody with a phone symbol. Do you?
Tim, this is
I don't know.
Yeah.
This is Peter May. I was just going to say, probably figuring out a way for future meetings for people to raise their hand. Maybe we just have to use the chat here, but someone need to get some resources so that people can be recognized, in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, we said that on the chat feature. I did mention that chat would be a great way to raise your hand for a comment or a question. And speaking to that, I just see that Millicent would like to make a comment, and that's fine.
Hi, this is to Ian's question about people's participation. So there are people here in the community who are aware of the fact that not everybody has access to a computer and are trying to help. So Stephen Dotson, who is our new sustainability coordinator, one of the things that he is working on is trying to figure out how to get devices or internet access to people who don't have that. It's not a promise that we can do that, but I know he's working on it. And then I'm working through the BAMA organization, Brattleboro Area Mutual Aid, to look for volunteers who can provide tech help, because some of those people have those things, but they don't work in this context. So none of those things are promises, but there is an awareness that that sort of, quote, digital divide really matters in this situation. And
Thank
there's
you, Melissa.
people working on it.
Yeah, thank you for both of those, especially the Brattleboro Area Mutual Aid. That's something we should all talk about. That it's a great forum to both offer your services and help, and also request help, which is important too. There's some great examples of our community coming together, and it's not involving the select board or even town staff. Sometimes it's just people stepping up, and it's terrific. So I don't see any other comments. And it is coming up on exactly an hour, which would make my promise be true, which would be awesome. So I think we're getting ready to wrap this up, and I realize that we have not had anybody make a motion yet because we haven't needed one. But somebody here who may or may not be our new member might want to make the very first motion to adjourn, if you'd like. Ian?
I would. Yeah, I move to adjourn.
Awesome. Let's see, we'll test the hands thing. All those in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. That's unanimous, 5-0. Thanks everybody for tuning in, the 40 of you that came in on GoToMeeting, and BCTV as always. Hopefully we'll see that out there. And thanks to town staff too for taking the time. Thank you, Peter.
Stay
you.
safe. We love you.